Hi guys! Today I'd like to talk about the readers that you use in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, how they complement each other, and readers that we liked, that we disliked, that we thought were maybe a little too difficult at the time, or ones that we breezed right through. I do have a video about 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade readers that Oak Meadow uses. If you want to watch that video, I'll put it up here somewhere. But I do want to say that these are the readers for Oak Meadow. Oak Meadow 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Now, if you don't use Oak Meadow, you can still find this useful. You can still get inspiration from the books that we read and what they recommend because they're the classics. So if you're wondering, oh, I would like some new books to read, or I'd like some ideas on what books my 3rd, 4th, and 5th grader could be reading, this is really helpful too. So let's just go into it. So for 3rd grade, Oak Meadow has you reading for the first time specific readers. Now you're supposed to be reading these with a parent, but depending on your reading level, your child's reading level, they could be reading them more silently or more out loud. And you're also supposed to be welcoming the idea of they read a little bit, you read a little bit. So it's not stressful. It doesn't stress them out. The minute that they start to look like glazed over, like I can't believe I'm reading, you can pick up and start reading for them. And so it's a great bonding experience. It's a great time to cuddle on the couch and read these books. The ones that I could find for 3rd grade that I had were Wizard of Oz, Charlotte's Web. This is my Winnie the Pooh. I actually have this old Winnie the Pooh set. Let me see if I can show. Pippi Longstocking, Little House in the Big Woods, and then I think there's another one. There might be one more that I'm not thinking of right now. But what do all of these books have in common? Well, I would say that for the most part, they are for a decent reader. When I had my oldest daughter start them, they were a little too difficult for her, so we did a lot of back and forth. We started with Pippi Longstocking, and she loved this story, and I think that really helped. We read a couple pages a day. She would read some, and I would read some. We wouldn't just stick with a chapter a day. And I think we read 5 days a week, or at least we tried to read for 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And we started with Pippi. We did this one right here, and she loved this book. So if you can see what it looks like here. There we go. You can see what it looks like there. There are pictures in it, and she loved the pictures. And one thing I do want to mention is we tried to do Charlotte's Web for 3rd grade, but the way that E.B. White writes in this book is a dialect, it's a slang, and it really caused her difficulty. She wasn't a strong reader at the time, and she just got way too caught in the verbiage of it, the way that he wrote. And let me see if I can think of an example. I'm not sure, but I think it's like a southern dialect, like a southern twang, and he actually wrote it out. And so it was just really difficult for her. It made her just get caught up in the words, and she never could really follow the story because she was getting caught in the reading. So we skipped this. We read probably maybe 3 or 4 chapters, and then we just moved on to something else. So for 3rd grade, the big thing with Oak Meadow, I wrote this down. The big thing with Oak Meadow is I use an older version of 3rd and 4th. I have an older version. I have a 2010 and a 2009 version. And for 3rd grade, it just simply says, read a classic of your choice. So, in all honesty, do you have to use these books here? You don't. You can pick whatever book you want. There's no reports on it. There's no real projects on it. Now, there might be something where they talk about a book that you might have read, but from what I remember, you're not connecting it with any other subjects. So if you wanted to, you could read any classic you wanted, and also you could read it in any order. And I think that's what made it so easy to just read this for a few weeks and then skip ahead to something else. So they read all year long, but it's very, very relaxed. It's getting them used to this rhythm of reading with a parent and by themselves, reading out loud, reading these fun books. In 4th grade, it changes some. In 4th grade, you're reading books 5 days a week. you're expected to start reading silently, and so they want you to be reading silently too. Right now, sometimes she reads silently, sometimes she reads to me, because I think it's really important to practice reading aloud, making sure that you're understanding how to pronounce everything, going over difficult words. And a lot of your spelling words come from your journal work and your readers. So that way I can kind of tell, oh, she's having a difficult time maybe pronouncing this, or this is a difficult word. This would be a good one to use for spelling. 4th grade also introduces reports. Now, not like the big reports that they're going to be writing as they get older, but just reports in the idea of like, what did you read? Was it interesting? Tell us about it. There's also some projects at the end of the readers, and so that means that you read a certain book at a certain time. I think everything we've read, it's given us at least 4 weeks to finish, and they haven't been huge books. So some of them that I have right here for 4th grade, let me just grab this here, are like Rachel's Journal, Heidi. This is our Heidi. This isn't the one that you could probably buy from Oak Meadow. I got this one for like 25 cents at the library, which was awesome. And then like this one right here, Treasury for Children. There's also Search for Delicious, Sign of the Beaver, which is the next one we're going to be reading. And then maybe there's another one, I'm not sure. Oh, Stuart Little. We have Stuart Little somewhere. Stuart Little is the other one. Stuart Little. And it tells you when to read it. So like Stuart Little is the first book that you read, and then you do a project over it. And then you do Search for Delicious, and then you do Heidi, and then you do James Harriet's Treasury for Children, and then you do Rachel's Journal, etc., etc. Now you can, and it does say that you can switch out these books, but it does give you a timeline. So if you're deciding, like we decided not to read Search for Delicious and instead to read a book on a missionary woman to China, Gladys Aylward, we decided to do a character study instead. So at the end of it, when it said do a report over this book, we just did a report over Gladys Aylward. And then we moved on to Heidi after that. One thing about Rachel's Journal that people have been talking about is that this is the way that it is written in the inside. Do you see that? It's kind of like a print slash cursive. And my daughter, who struggles with reading to begin with, really struggled with this. And so what I decided to do was to mostly read this with her, even though it's 4th grade. And it does say it in the book that if they do struggle with this print, to read it with them. Oh, you're so muddy. How did you get so muddy?
Because I'm playing Willow.
Okay, go back out then.
I have dirt in my hands.
You have dirt in your hands? Are you having fun?
Yeah.
Okay. So for 4th grade, like I said, they give you 4 weeks for each book. And at the end, sometimes there's a project. Maybe it's a craft or it's a report. Very, very relaxed, very loosely structured. It's just kind of getting them into that idea of reading and remembering what they read and then writing a report about it or doing a project over it. Yeah, the big thing with 4th grade is that it introduces, besides a timeline with specific books, is the 30 minutes a day of silent reading. And then 5th grade. Now, when I finally decided to go through the 5th grade early readers, the 5th grade readers, I was a little shocked at how quickly they pushed you through these books. Now, there are a lot more readers than in the other classes. So I understand the need to really make sure that all this material gets taught by the time that the 36 weeks are over, but it is a lot tighter. So one thing that I did when I found out just what a difference it was is I got on the Oak Meadow Families page on Facebook, and I just put it out there, hey, are the older 5th grade readers and reading schedule the same as the 2015 version? Because if you remember, I got the 2015 version of English and History this year. I got a very helpful response back from another homeschooling parent stating that yes, the academia, it's all beefed up. It's 5th through 8th grade. is really focused on reading and writing, and so even the older versions have this tighter reading schedule. She said the only difference was the readers were different. So that answers my question of should I have gone with an older version or not? I'm very happy with my decision still for the 2015 version. And I was gonna show you some of those books, like Ben and Me, Johnny Tremain, Witch of Blackbird Pond, Little House on the Prairie, and Freedom Train. So, let's see, let's grab this one here. This is just your normal run-of-the-mill little paperback chapter book. You can see though that this is a 5th grade book, and woo, I'm gonna lose all of my books. Oh my goodness. This one's well loved. Look how beat up that is. And this one was a 3rd grade book. And if you can tell, let's see, if you put them side by side, they really don't look any different. They really don't look that much different. Now this one is quite a bit bigger. Lengthwise, look at that, let's see. Yeah, see, it's about maybe twice the size. So from what I'm gathering, the big difference between the 4th and the 5th grade readers are just the amount. We probably have twice as many books, many of them chapter books, and they're supposed to be read in a very tight timeline. 4th grade has a timeline, but as far as I can see, they're 4 weeks each. You have a month to finish a book, okay? Ooh, I dropped my thing. Now when I was looking at the 5th grade, that's not the case. Some of these books, albeit smaller books, like this one right here, I think they give you 2 weeks to finish that. Which, I mean, is understandable, but it does have a lot of writing in it. It's got some pictures, which, you know, the kids love that. We love looking at the pictures. But like you get 2 weeks for this one, okay? You get 4 weeks for some of the bigger ones, like this one, which I feel like look at the size of that print. I feel like this is an intense one, right? And then I think you get about 4 weeks for this one, for Witch of Blackbird Pond. Now, there were, I think it was Freedom Train, which isn't that much smaller right here. You only get 3 weeks for this one. And so that really surprised me that they weren't consistent. Sometimes it was 3 weeks for this, 2 weeks for this, 4 weeks for this. And then there were 2 times where it just said, pick a classic of your choice. One time I believe they gave you 2 weeks to pick a classic of your choice. And then one time it just said 1 week, pick a classic of your choice, and then you're gonna go right into something else. So there were 2 times in the curriculum where you just picked a book. And at the very end, you pick an autobiography. So I think it gives you 5 weeks at the very end to pick your own autobiography to do a report over. So really what I was noticing is that there's just so much content and it's so tight. So if you're someone who maybe you don't have a strong reader, maybe you don't always get to reading every week, I think that that's something to really be aware of, that in 5th grade, you have got to stick to that schedule. I still don't know what we're gonna do because I really don't like being so rigid. I don't like messing it up in a sense, because if we don't get to reading, if they don't finish this book, does it mess up how it connects with social studies? Does it mess up anything else? And so I think we're gonna do our best, but you know, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I mean, there was one other thing about Johnny Tremain here. This one right here, Johnny Tremain. This one is dense, and I actually think this might be the one where it says like you need to read this many, you need to make sure that your child is reading this many pages a day to be able to finish it in time. And you also need to be taking, they need to be taking notes because they're going to be doing like a timeline report afterwards. And so I think this is kind of the intro of reading, note-taking, writing. That happens a lot, you know, like in college all the time, but especially, I mean, a little bit in high school. They're getting into that rhythm. They're getting into that method. They're moving away from hands-on activities and integrative learning and everything being intertwined to reading, note-taking, writing. Hi Bug, what do you need? So here we go. If you do not have the whole list of the readers for, yes. If you do not have the list of all the readers for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, I'm gonna read them off to you so then you know. 3rd grade, Charlotte's Web, Pippi Longstocking, Winnie the Pooh, Little House in the Big Woods, Velveteen Rabbit, and Wizard of Oz. 4th grade, Search for Delicious, Rachel's Journal, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Heidi, The Trumpet of the Swan, Stuart Little, Treasury for Children, and Sign of the Beaver. In 5th grade, Freedom Train, Ben and Me, Johnny Tremain, Little House on the Prairie, Sarah Morton's Day, The Witch of Blackbird Pond, If You Sailed on the Mayflower, and The Children of the Wild West. So those are the books, the readers for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I really don't see that much of a difference in the difficulty, except for some of the 5th grade books look like they're just a higher reading level in general that could cause some struggling readers a little more trouble. But I think it's the timeline, that's the big thing. I think it's the going from read whatever for as long as you want to read this in a little bit longer time to read this in a short time, and then we gotta go to something else. I think that's gonna be the big change in that. If you have any other recommendations for readers, since we have some open spaces next year, or if you have any comments about what you guys used in 5th grade or how the switch from 4th to 5th grade went, let me know in the comments below. Thanks guys.